Hey JC, how's it going?
Well, good morning from Florida, and I know it's nighttime over there, right?
It's afternoon actually. It's 2:30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys are off on your way into the workday. We're just getting started here.
Yeah, it's always crazy trying to get my head around the different time zones and things.
Yeah. So guess what I have here?
What have you got there? Ah, nice, perfect. Yeah, let everyone know what we're going to be talking about.
So so yeah, I've looked at this for many years. I haven't looked at it the way I'm looking at it now for quite some time, because you look at different things, and there's also different videos, because he's obviously demonstrated in many places, but it's like a good movie. I haven't seen it. I haven't analyzed it in years, maybe a couple of years, and now I analyze it with different eyes.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so it's that's why people never stop learning, because you can look at the same thing from a different angle, and it's been the same thing. It's been the same thing. It's been the same thing. You look at it from a different angle, you go, it was there all along. How did I not see this?
So I feel about that way about his just general training notes. When I've read them in the past, I'm like, that's a bit random. And then the more I've learned, the more I've looked at it, I'm like, actually, that really makes a lot of sense. Like, I think when we chatted before, he really thought outside the box, and he was way ahead of his time on a lot of stuff.
Yes, and that you have to respect, and that's one of the things that I respect about Bruce. And I always say he was one of the guys that originally taught me how to learn.
Yes, yeah, he's constantly exploring, trying new things, and also it was all very relevant to his martial arts. And he didn't really write about that so much. He got his random, never like put down theory of like how to train physically, as in weights, and how to. You just had to kind of figure out what he was trying to do by looking at his notes. It's so interesting.
Yeah. So do you want to just keep going, or you want to introduce the segment, or what do you want?
Yeah, well, I sort of told everyone what was going to be happening, but loads more people are joining. We've got 45 at the moment. So this is actually my first Instagram live. So when it went live, it would have told everyone the Pioneer's doing his first live. So I was saying to people that I had been saving it, because I know it announces every time. You know, if you do your first one, it announces it to everyone. So I was like, I need something that's worthy of that announcement. So I think this is an awesome topic. And it's also an exciting time for the channel, because I just crossed 200,000 subscribers. So yeah, so it feels like a little bit of a nice way to kind of flag post that. So yeah, so we're going to be talking today with JC. Anyone who hasn't seen my video on functional training, JC is one of the original advocates for functional training, and heads up the Institute of Human Performance, where he trains a whole bunch of athletes, and just really knows the stuff on this topic. So if you're going to take anyone's word for it, it's JC here. And we've had discussions in the past, and they've always been fascinating. And we thought a cool thing to do today would be to look at Bruce Lee's 1-inch punch, because Bruce is a guy that we both admire, and it's a great example of using the whole body to generate power, and moving in a functional way like that. So yeah,
Yep.
really hear what you have to say on it and hear your thoughts.
Well, like I said, I was introduced to Bruce Lee in the 1970. I was only 11 years old, and I soaked up everything, and he always attracted me because of the way he saw things. He was traditionally trained, with Yip Man and Wing Chun, but he had his own thing. And look, he was an actor, and he was a child actor. I didn't know this.
Oh yeah.
He'd been acting since he was like in single digit.
Yeah.
He was a very good child actor.
Yeah.
People think that this guy was just no. He was, and his dad, I believe, was an actor as well.
Yeah.
So he comes from an acting family. And you know how it is with fans. I mean, if you're a Bruce Lee fan, he beats Rambo in a fight. Yeah. And the Rambo fanatics will fight with the Bruce Lee fanatics, saying that nobody beats Rambo. And people get lost in their persona. Mm-hmm. I was never like that, because I can look at something he taught me how to look at things just from a non-emotional standpoint. And what do you see? What do you really see?
Yeah.
Not what have you been taught to see, not what do you expect to see? What do you or there's a difference between knowing what is there and seeing what you see. Two different things. And people will go on with what they know is there. And the discipline of seeing things as they are is huge.
You know, a really great example of that is when an artist draws a portrait of somebody and they turn the reference photo upside down, because their perception of what that person looks like is so strong, they can't objectively draw it, because they end up with bigger eyes, because that's what you focus on. They draw like a strange shaped mouth because, you know, that's what they're focusing on at that time. But if you turn the picture upside down, then you can detach yourself from it and you just draw the lines as you see them. So that's, yeah, that's the same kind of thing, isn't it? Like, you need to be able to look at everything that way, not let your emotions and your
yes. Yeah. In my functional training book from 1999, I wrote down about Manet, French impressionist, where he was commissioned to draw an aristocratic family. It was called The Balcony. And so it was three people, two women and a man behind them. The man has a perfectly, what you would call a perfectly dimensional face, with the nose appearing to be out further than the eyes and so on and so forth. And the women were painted flat-faced. I mean, flat-faced, like a plate. And they said, dude, what's up? And he said, the women were outside of the cover where the sun was hitting them, and I didn't see any shadows.
Oh, wow. So just literally drew what you saw. Yeah.
So I painted what I saw. The man was behind, more inside, underneath the cover, so I could see shadows. You're like, woo, all right, that's a different level of objectivity.
Yeah.
So that's what Bruce had. And so now that I'm looking at it, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. I mean, Bruce, I don't think if Bruce Lee was a mixed martial artist, he would run away with it. I think he'd be a competitive martial artist if he was to compete, let's say MMA, or even in Muay Thai, karate or something like that. But I just don't know if he would be a world champ type of competitor. Yeah. Athlete, no doubt. He was very athletic, could do a lot of things with his body, just genetically gifted in terms of preservation of body. He had a very, very young looking body, young functioning body. You could just see these thin guys, you could just see the speed through them, because it's not a mushy thin, it's a very fibery thin.
Solid, doesn't it?
Just dense. Everything is dense, small, but just dense.
Yeah.
You know, it's like tight rubber. You can recognize when you've been in it long enough, you can recognize that body. It's just a tight rubber.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But when you look at this, before the fist even moves, and by the way, it's not a 1-inch punch, it's more like a 3-inch punch.
Yeah.
So what he does is he moves his hips and moves his shoulder slightly and bends his elbow. Mm. So he starts to go light on the front foot, which gets his body moving forward. That's how you throw a ball. That's how you bat. The front leg gets lifted to some degree or unloaded.
It does look
and
like
that starts the body falling.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So when you go, okay, where does the energy come from? The energy comes from gravity. At the end of the day, the only free energy you get in this world is gravity. It's the only thing constant that will produce energy, and it will produce a downward force. But if you have if your center of mass is to one side of the base of support, you will start to fall. Mm-hmm. That's how a change of direction occurs. That's how batting occurs. When you start to fall, that creates momentum in a direction. And that momentum is the initial production of energy. The rest is transferring. Now, you do get some energy from the push of the rear foot when he bends that front elbow, boom, and he rotates. So he does a good job at loading up certain things in a very, very small range of motion. Yeah. So he can really take advantage of that forward momentum that he develops. But what he shows you in an instant is what you see in batting except it's through a longer range of motion, so you can get to see a lot more of it. Man, let me tell you, back in those days, they were shooting at 27 frames per second.
Yeah.
And he disappears in one frame.
Yeah.
I mean, the hand is there, and then it's gone. It reminds me of the final shrug in Olympic weightlifting, when you see like Piros Dimas and these kind of fast, explosive weightlifters. You miss the shrug.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
You're trying to show somebody the final extension where everything is up and it's gone. It's gone because he's here and then the bar is here, or he's here and then he's here.
Yeah, trying to get a screen cap of that is impossible. Blur.
Dude, I mean, if you had it in 200 frames now and in 4K now, you would catch everything. I mean, you could catch his fingernails, you know, if they were dirty or not, you know, but not in those days. You're not going to catch that in those days. It was 27 frames per second, and he disappears. His hand goes from here, and then he moves, and then it disappears into the board. But the foot, the total hip translation at the point of impact, I'm looking at about 8 inches, give or take.
Yes, tiny.
Yeah, it's that much. But then again, remember, he's going through a pine board. It looks to be like 3/4 inch pine board, and they break really fast. They break really fast. People know how to hold them. You're breaking with the grain. I used to do breaking, so I know a little bit about the nuances and the smoke and mirror of breaking. And I broke 2 pine boards taped together that were 1/2 inch. So they look really fat.
Yeah.
But you better make sure that you got them with the same grain, because if you cross grains and you hit that thing, and I used to do the 2 boards taped together, I did on a speed break. So I used to hold and just release, bam, and I'd hit them in midair.
Cool.
So that's very flashy. It looks like, wow, but you gotta hit it in the middle, and you gotta hit it with some speed. That's
one of the things, a lot of these discussions that people have, they'll say like, oh, he wasn't a real martial artist, so he'd get beaten in MMA. Not necessarily Bruce, like whoever they're talking about, but it's like, it doesn't take away from the fact it's extremely athletic, and it doesn't take away from the fact that if you then train them in MMA, they might be amazing. Like, just because they didn't have experience. Like, you hear this about Shaolin all the time, you know, like, oh, you know, they'd never win a real fight, it's all fake and stuff. It's like, that doesn't take, they might not win in MMA, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it is amazing. Like, doing a head spring on concrete is amazing, and that you can then transfer to a real life combat situation that would be useful. That doesn't mean that everything they're teaching is useless because they wouldn't win a fight. Like,
no, I mean, but look, this here that you see, this